Imagine having woven mail, which grants you around 45% damage resistance, overshield, which grants you around 70% damage resistance, amplified, which grants you around 15% damage resistance, and finally our exotic chest piece, which grants you to a max of 50% damage resistance, which gives you a total of 170% damage resistance. So if you guys stay till the end, I can assure you that you will be having at least 50% damage resistance throughout the entire battlefield, and you will feel like you are playing a Titan role, swinging through the map like Spider-Man role. So stay till the end to watch this build. And by the way, this damage reduction is actually excluding from the 100 resilience part. I did not even count that resilience thing. Okay, let's start with the aspects because these are the core of the build. So now the first aspect which we are going to use is the Ascension. So upon our class ability usage, we get amplified, which gives around 15% damage resistance. By the way, if you guys are using this build, you will constantly 24 by 7 be always be amplified. So you can count this as a 100% availability as a extra 15% damage resistance. So other than being amplified, you also apply an extra elemental debuff to the enemies. That's nothing but the inflicting jolt within the 10 meters of range. Now, to perfectly sync this aspect with our exotic chess piece, we are going to use gifted conviction. So what this exotic chess piece does is it boosts our ascension. So it releases the 3 arc projectiles forward. So upon inflicting jolt to enemies in any terms, not only by ascension, you will gain extra damage resistance for a whooping of max around 50% damage resistance based on the targets you jolt. So in order to boost our exotic chest piece, we are gonna focus on our class item. So in this case, we are gonna use marksman dodge. The reason I'm not using ambush dodge is because I actually don't. I'm actually not using winter sword, right? Because if I'm using winter sword, then it basically resets our melee. So that's the reason, because of the low cooldown around 29 seconds, which gives around 10 seconds gap if I'm using a gambless dodge. It makes a huge impact if you are playing in higher activity like GMs or master law sectors. So I'm gonna go with marksman dodge, which gives around 29 seconds cooldown. So in order to get our class ability frequently, to proc our ascensions frequently, we are gonna go with the aspect facet of hope. It basically grants additional 40% class ability regeneration rate if we are having one elemental debuff. So since we are having we will be having multiple elemental debuffs, which I am going to tell you in the further of this video. It basically grants around 60% additional class ability regeneration rate if we are having extra elemental debuffs. So this perfectly syncs with our first aspect. These are all the terms which basically syncs with our first aspect. So now we talked very much about jolting. We talked very much about arc things. So now let's go with some great artifact first, which actually greatly enhances our arc damage. So first thing I'd like to recommend is going with the dielectric. So upon getting any arc debuff enemy kill, you can actually get a stack of bolt charge. Since we will be frequently using our class ability for every 10 seconds, around 10 seconds, every jolted kill we get, it basically grants a stack of bolt charge. So upon 10 stacks, we can also trigger the bolt charge, which actually enhances your arc damage. So next thing is actually kind of optional. If you are feeling a bit of complex in surviving, you can also go with the hold of the line, which basically heals you if you get a certain amount of kills. So next thing which I'd like to recommend, the must and should artifact, is the photonic flare. So since we will be severing everything in our battlefield, which about the severing we will talk further in the video. We will be severing our battlefield frequently every now and then. So I'd like to go with the photonic flare. Since we will be dealing a huge amount of arc damage, so if we deal that arc damage to a severed enemies, it actually creates a blinding burst. Blinding is one of the most strongest debuffs currently in the game, so this will boost your survivability a lot more. Now if you guys are if you guys are using heavy special ammo dependent, I can also recommend you can go with the dreadful finisher, which actually creates a special ammo brick for you. And the next one most important artifact perk is the flash over. Upon reaching the 10 stacks of bolt charge damage will be heavily increased. So this is one of the perk which we will be proccing every now and then. So now finally the last two perks I'd like to say is, the first one is the defibrillating blast, which upon stunning a champion it basically heals you and triggers grand stun bolt charge. I don't know how many times I have survived because of this artifact perk, so I usually recommend going with this artifact perk. Now for the second aspect we are going with stylish executioner. So this basically adds our extra survivability for higher level content. So if you are playing kind of lower level content, you can swap with gunpowder gamble. So it actually depends on what type of content you are playing. So if we kill enemies affected by enemy elemental debuffs, this aspect actually grants us invisibility for around 8 seconds. So while we are invisible, if we use our melee attack, it also applies an extra elemental debuff, that's weakening. So we are proccing invisible debuff, we are proccing even weakening debuff by using this aspect. So now we have covered our aspects. Now we are going with abilities. So guys, please do listen carefully. This is where we are going to introduce strand to our build. We will be doing extra almost all the stuff the strand the strand does. We will be applying unravel, we will be applying shivering, we will be applying everything, literally everything. So please do listen carefully from here. Now we come to our ability section. First one is that we are using marksman launch. We have already decided that. So coming to the next one is the melee ability. This is one of the core thing to focus on after the aspects. So the melee which we are using is threaded spike. So this is actually a stand melee. So this melee actually severs the target. The target it actually hits. So that's the thing. We will be applying sever debuff by applying our melee. So in case if you are invisible and if you use this melee, you will also apply weaken debuff and your melee also deals extra around 200% damage. Now after using this melee, we are gonna talk about some artifact perks which basically boosts our strand in this build. First thing I want to talk about is Wild Wave. After defeating a severed target, basically you sever targets with your melee. After you defeat a severed target, it basically spawns a tangle. Now after picking a tangle and throwing it to enemies, right? So tangles also has the ability to sever the targets thanks to this Wild Wave artifact perk, and also has the ability to reduce the tangle cooldown by around 1 second. So this artifact perk perfectly suits in our build. The next one which I like to tell about is the unraveling ops. So this basically boosts our damage in our build. So what it does is, if you pick an orb of power or a tangle and if you throw it, it basically gives an ability of unraveling grounds for around 14 seconds. Basically it's an actually extra damage for our stand weapons, and it also has the ability to stun the baggage. The next artifact perk which I like to tell you is about the Horde Petal. So now you basically unravel the target by severing them. So after you deal enough damage with your stand weapons to unravel the target, it basically spawns a threadling which again boosts your damage to a particular target. Now I'd like to talk about the last artifact perk, but not the least, 2 threads usage. So what this artifact perk does is, if you deal damage against severed enemies, it basically inflicts unravel. So the previous artifact perks which I have stated, tangle supply fever, Now after dealing damage to silver target, it automatically applies unravel thanks to this artifact for 2 straight CP. And if you defeat that silver target, again it spawns a triangle. Now this is where our core comes into play. After you defeat that silver target, then that on defeating a severed enemy, now that basically releases the healing pulse when he dies. So restoring around some HP, and it will grant you woven mail for 10 seconds to the user. So this is the reason this artifact also plays a crucial role in our build by giving woven mail and unraveling. So these are the artifact perks which perfectly syncs in our build. The unraveling debuff, the strand debuff, the threadling debuff, the severing debuff, and finally the woven mail. And now for the final thing, the grenade. I like to use grapple grenade because of its low cooldown, and also it also has the ability to unravel the target. So after defeating an unravel targets, and it again repeats the loop from where I previously stated. So that's the reason I'm using this grapple melee, because it perfectly looks in my build. So if you are encountering champions like Overload and Unstoppable more frequently, you can also swap this to some ice grenade. So it also has the capability to stun those two. So it depends on the activity which you play. So this is where we conclude our ability section. So this is where we conclude the most important aspects and abilities of our build. Now in order to support those abilities and aspects, we are gonna talk about some most important fragments which should be must present in our build. The first one is Facet of Hope. So while you have an elemental debuff, it will boost the slash ability regeneration up to a whooping of 60%. So what happens is, this aspect, if you use an ascension, you will automatically be amplified. There's the one debuff, and that's the one elemental debuff you have. Now that basically procs for additional class ability regeneration. This is the must and should fragment in your build. The next one is Facet of Purpose. So picking up an orb of power, it will give you the particular elemental debuff. So it depends on which super you have equipped. So in my case, I have used Void Super, which basically gives me Void Overkill, which adds around 70% damage to the skin. The reason I have used this Void Super is purely based on survivability. You can also swap for any super you want. I'd like to recommend you can use Void Super or Stand Super for extra damage and extra DPS. The next fragment which we are going with is Facet of Courage. Since we are going to unravel, sever everything in our battlefield, so whatever light damage you do, especially the ascension part, will deal extra 10% damage to targets affected by our darkness debuffs. Now coming to the next aspect, next fragment, we are going to use a Facet of Balance. So dealing getting damage from light ability kills will grant you melee energy. Similarly, getting damage kills from darkness ability with grenade ability, which helps you proc our cycle more frequently. Now finally, the most important part is Facet of Protection. So the Facet of Protection will, if you are surrounded by around 3 enemies, so you will automatically get 15% damage resistance. So now if you are in transcendent state, this can go up to whooping of 32% damage resistance. So this will add this will make our survivability even more better. So this covers our fragment section. So for super, I like to recommend going with either Void Super or a Stand Super. If you guys need more crowd control kind of thing, you can go with Void Super. If you guys need more damage, you can go with Strand Super. So the weapons I like to recommend in this build is use one strand weapon. I like to say use one machine gun as a stand machine gun. And in the first slot, you can go with either the statist sidearm, which is currently more famous for stunning barrier champions. So in the second slot, you can go with either primary weapon or fusion rifle if you are having a hard time stunning the unstoppable champions. So these are the weapons which I have used in this build. Please feel to copy those. Or even I can also recommend some weapons. For you must always have one stand weapon. I recommend going with stand machine gun, because machine gun has a great ability of stunning the overlord champions, and also there is some artifact perks which basically boost machine guns also. If you are having a hard survivability, you can go with machine gun and those artifact perks. And for one slot you can go with sidearm, and the other slot, if you are if you are like facing limited ammo, you can go with primary weapon, else you can go with fusion rifle if you are facing a hard time with unstoppable champions. So yeah, this is our complete build. So feel free to recommend down how we can improve this build further, or what are your thoughts on this build. And if you guys are having any builds in your mind, you can also sharing down in the comments. I will try my best to reply to all of them. We will be getting some more interesting videos in Destiny 2 like this about builds. I'm really loving this game as of now. So stay tuned. We'll be back soon. Have a nice day. Bye.